the CEO of EPS Global, and we're here today to talk about component packaging. Thanks for joining us, Colin.
Great, thanks, Ciara.
So we'll start. So what are the benefits of component packaging for devices onto tape?
So the simplest answer I can give you is that tape facilitates high-speed pick-and-place operations. So that's the main reason. So all of our customers are effectively contract manufacturers. So even the OEMs who are building in-house act in production like they're the internal contract manufacturers for their own companies. So they've many lines and many parts that they're building in their printed circuit board assemblies, and each of those have many part numbers. So that type of a diverse mix in production means that they're all trying to achieve the highest throughput. That's how they're measured.
Okay. Throughput on the assembly line we're talking about here, just
Correctly.
for our listeners. Yeah.
Correctly, right. So if you look at a single line, you could spend $2 to $3 million on capital equipment for the machines that pick and place components onto the board, chip shooters as they're known. And again, the measurement of how good they are is in throughput. So you've got all these many part numbers. Setup time is a factor, and there's several lines in each facility. So the number of staff you require to set up and maintain then each line while it's in operation is a big factor in terms of the combination of getting the most effective use of CapEx and OpEx.
Yeah.
So when you see all that as the setup, the critical thing to remember is all those chip shooters are designed for tape.
Yeah.
That's what they're designed for. They're working to their optimum, and they're at the higher speed where they're being fed with tape. So large quantity packaging, thousands of pieces per reel, sets up quicker because you can pre-assemble it off the line. You can set it up in one click. And once they're set up, then they can run reasonably long runs because of the large quantities per reel. Okay. So it's faster and less setup time, and it's how the machines were designed. So if I give you an example, for example, in a chip shooter, you may have, say, 16 slots. If you take a simple printed circuit board assembly with 32 different part numbers, you have 32 reels, you need 2 chip shooters side by side, 16 parts at each. If one of those parts is only available in trays will take up 4 slots. Instead of a tape slot, a tray slot's 4 times as wide.
Okay, right, yeah.
So now suddenly I need 3 chip shooters. Now, very simplified example, but in general, trays will add to the amount of space in a chip shooter you need, and they will add to your CapEx on average. If you have 2 parts that need trays, you're then into 8 slots, or you start to use a carousel to rotate between trays.
Okay. More CapEx.
More time. I mean, the carousel is much slower than the reels, and that's an OpEx hit. So every time you're working with trays in a line, you're making compromises on either CapEx or OpEx. And every manufacturer is trying to get the perfect setup for them is every part's on tape, and that's what they're looking to achieve. There's I suppose there's one other small item from a quality point of view, in that the parts are still sealed in tape until they're used, whereas I have to unpackage tape to put it in trays to put them in carousels. So there's things like the exposure to atmospherics and potential requirement to bake stuff when you're using trays. Also, trays are smaller in almost every case. They're smaller quantity packaging than the equivalent reel.
Yes, yeah.
So setup is a factor, right? So you've got to feed the tray stacker. There's a person needs to keep a closer eye on that than they do on a reel of 5,000 parts.
Absolutely.
So the whole idea for volume manufacturing is to get things into tape, and that's really where our business comes in.
Okay, so basically we're talking about speed, efficiency, productivity, and at the end of the day, cost savings.
Yeah, which we're making a cost exchange with our customers of saying we're going to charge you per piece price to put stuff in tape. The payoff is almost always then in OpEx or CapEx on their side.
Okay, perfect. So how can the medical or MedTech or pharma or agri-tech industries benefit from custom tape and reel packaging solutions?
So actually, the benefits of taping and reeling are not specific to any particular vertical. So all of our customers benefit in exactly the same way, whether that's a MedTech customer, an automotive customer, contract manufacturing, industrial. The benefits are identical. We tend to focus on industries that have quite similar economics in terms of volume economics. And across those, they each see a huge benefit from using tape. So MedTech along with all the others.
Okay, great, thank you. So what way do manufacturers usually ship their parts?
Well, manufacturers will often make products available in tape, which is the easiest thing to do. You buy it in the way you want to consume it. But certain manufacturers will have a preference for shipping in trays. So it depends on the component. Sometimes for larger connectors or more complex packaging for certain components, manufacturers prefer to use trays. Trays as a way of shipping stuff long distance are more robust, and they're going to have there's going to be a quality aspect associated with that. Also, because trays are square shaped, they can often be packaged more efficiently for long distance air freight. So sometimes you'll see a preference on the manufacturer side for shipping stuff in trays. You could also find yourself in a situation where there's a component shortage and the parts are available, the correct parts are available, but only in trays. And you find yourself buying something that you would usually buy yourself in tape and having it in trays. So sometimes you'll find a pressure from the manufacturer to use trays. There's never a pressure from the consumer to use trays. So the consumer would always prefer to have stuff in tape, and the cost benefit of actually exchanging stuff from tray to tape is always the conversation that we find ourselves in then. So for example, in our programming business, we take in huge amounts of stuff on trays. It's almost always required out on tape. We don't suffer from the logistics or the quality challenges because we're usually so close to our customer that you're not talking about long distance shipments when you're coming from our locations to the customer's locations. You're not talking about air freight ever. Okay,
and EPS Global's machines, can they handle this transfer from tape to tray? Or tray to tape.
yeah. So in programming, so in our overall services business, it's the majority of the products that we tape and reel today are still the products that we program. We tape and reel almost 100% of everything that we program. But the fastest growing part of our business is the discrete taping and reeling. So taping and reeling non-program parts, die-cast parts, metal parts, connectors, clasps, and that's usually custom tape, special types of pockets. And what you find is they're in the 300 item bill of materials, this can be the last item that still need to be taped. And it's a big jump from the line to take the one part they're still stuck with on trays, move it into tape, shortens, speeds up the line, and the cost of doing that can be well worth it for the net benefits you get in terms of productivity on the line, because it could be the last hurdle between you and completely having tape on the whole line.
And getting your product finished.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so what technological advancements have you seen or that are shaping the future of tape and reeling component packaging?
Well, within EPS, the two things I guess that we've done in the last 3 to 4 years are, firstly, we make most of our own tape today. That wouldn't have been true 5 years ago. So we have a huge investment in manufacturing tape, in addition to all the standard sizes that we consume for the programming business, which is usually a very standardized width and depth. We have a range of custom tape now that we use for pins, connectors, and unusually shaped or deeper devices, transformers, those sorts of sometimes not taped devices. So that capability is making a big difference to the type of stuff we're taping and reeling. And then the latest development we have is to look at wafer taping. That's a new business for us. We've done the development. We're starting to introduce alpha customers to that. We've developed in-house a capability to handle, we can flip, optically inspect and tape devices as small as 300 microns squared, which is
tiny.
It's not tiny necessarily for wafers, but it's tiny for the sorts of things we're doing. So there's semiconductor capacitors is a big market for that. So things that are not, these again are non-programmable chips. It's purely a taping and reeling business. A lot of the capacity in the industry, there's a big capacity for this capability in Asia. There's not a big capacity today in Europe or in Mexico where we're going to target. So we're hoping to build that out in 2025, and that should be a new business for us. That I think there's some exciting stuff coming for us in 2025.
Amazing. Okay. I think that's a really quick run around component packaging.
Potted history.
Potted history and future. Okay, so thank you for joining us.
Thanks a lot, Claire. Cheers.